Welcome to the Judgment-Free Zone. You've downloaded the Alcohol-Free Marriage and More podcast with Matt and Amy, recorded live from the cornfields of Central Illinois. Welcome to episode number 77 for February 20th, 2024.
Well, hello there, children. Welcome back to the Alcohol-Free Marriage and More podcast. I'm Matt, along with the always lovely and I believe Juva bunning it up, Coach Amy. How are you, my love? I know I'm giving away your hair secrets. I don't have any hair secrets, so I got to give yours away.
Oh, I love you. I can't believe that you called me out on that.
Sold you out.
But yes, and I don't care because here's the thing. There's a pretty good ponytail under here, but it just makes it even more.
You want a good laugh? I throw it on top of my head. It's very entertaining.
Not this.
Not
this
for,
got
not
a
for
clip.
It's not for public consumption.
I'm telling you what, though. This makes hair for me so much better. So easy.
I know, you're a bit of a Juva Bun addict. But this is not the Juva Bun podcast. It's Alcohol-Free Marriage and More podcast. Let's get to some of those topics. If you want to know about Juva Bun, go somewhere else, I guess. But if you want to learn about alcohol-free lifestyle and marriage in the same podcast, like, subscribe, send this to your friends. Email Amy at joyintherside.com and tell how much you love her Juva Bun. Or while you're on joyintherside.com, you can always download our Beyond Spirits, the 7 tips to start your alcohol-free journey. Totally free to you and me.
Yeah, download it.
Download it today. There you go.
Well, no, it really is the things that we used.
It is. Trust me, she made me help her. It is the things we used.
It is the things that we used. And, that favorite of mine is, favorite of ours. Keeping the ritual, but replacing the ingredients. And then the second, playing the movie, the tape, whatever you want, forward.
The 2 glasses right here totally look like we're drinking alcohol, but this is zero NA0 Tanqueray and your zero wine that we'll get to in a minute.
Yes.
But because we did a zero evening last night and we get to a really awesome interview, I don't want to miss that. If you don't like what we're talking about, hang around for 5 minutes. Get to the interview because we have a great interview with Allison Barber.
Yep.
So I don't want you to miss that. But our sober gala, the gala is a big business dinner. 760 people.
Yes, the McLean County Chamber of Commerce. I am an ambassador for the chamber.
I'm just a lowly member.
You and I are both members. The copy shop is also a member. So each of our individual businesses, your parents' business, it is a great organization. I would highly encourage you in your local communities. Join your Chamber of Commerce, get involved.
Especially as awesome as ours, because ours is pretty awesome.
It was, an amazing gala last night. It actually was a lot of fun. Matt, Red Corn Studios, was a sponsor and was taking...
A Topaz sponsor.
You were taking photos last night, which was a lot of fun. I was your assistant.
Your unpaid assistant.
I was your Vanna White.
Yeah. You got a free meal out of the deal.
It was a great time. It was so much fun because so many of the nominees and the award winners are people that we know in the community, and it was just really good. If you haven't heard of Midwest Food Bank, they have locations all over the United States now, but it was started in our community, and it was just such a testament.
It's the largest food bank in the country now?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't know all the stats on it, but it was absolutely phenomenal. But the gentleman who won, and I think it's David
Keezer? Yeah, something like that,
yeah, I'd have to look that up. But he just gave his testimony that, he started this to a testament to God. Yep. And what he was called to do, and look where it's grown. It's actually grown to West Africa.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So that is really cool. It was just it really was a really great night.
Yep. But Amy, we've been to this before in days of yore.
Yes.
We would enjoy the bar probably more than we should. I believe it's maybe I don't remember. I don't remember the cash bar situation, but it was apparently very favorable to our drinking habits in the past, and to some this year as well. But it was our first time attending an event that size.
Yes.
And I don't know if it was just that we knew people, and I mean, it's not like a drinking event. There are bars because it's a big event. I probably the least of any time of doing an activity like that did I feel the pull to drink.
Oh,
Like,
I felt none.
I had none. Like
None.
I wasn't even motivated. We even brought our Brella drops because we were like, oh, we can make our own cocktails.
And we did. We made one, but we were so busy.
And we weren't motivated to wait in a bar line to get club soda. I'm like, I'm fine.
Well, I think that's the other thing.
Yeah.
Because I was really thinking about, well, they have NA options and that, and they did have soft drinks and that. And of course they had nothing other than that available.
Right.
But my thought was afterwards to have a totally separate NA bar with your soft drinks, with water, with coffee, have a couple of options for people who don't necessarily want to wait in a big line.
Right.
Gives people the opportunity that aren't going to wait. Because you and I talked, we're like, why would I wait in that line
for a club soda?
I'll just have a glass of water.
Yeah. That was a great point because I was
I had decaf coffee, which was, it was good.
But you're right. It's like, you're not going to wait in that line. But yeah, people who just want something, even a soda or something else, you're not going to wait in that line. So
No.
yeah, have an NA. I think for an event that big. I mean,
I think it would be really cool. I've got an idea. I might
float it by. Be careful. You get on a committee that way.
I know.
That's how you get on a committee.
I know. That's what happens.
Right,
but
Coach
it
Amy.
was an amazing
It was
gala.
a lot of fun. Let's get to our drink of the week so we can get to our awesome interview with Allison coming up.
Okay.
You go first.
Oh, I will go first. I have, this is, take out the spoon out of there.
Pro tip, spoons will keep your bubbly.
Yes, this is the de-alkalized Giesen Sparkling Brut. I love it. Absolutely love it. Oh, on the back, read off the calories, Matt.
This is Amy's favorite. Per container. So the whole 750 milliliter bottle is 100 calories.
Is that right?
Yeah, for the whole bottle. 50 calories per serving.
Oh my gosh.
So half a bottle's a serving. Which, if you think of that in like actual alcohol terms, is crazy.
Yeah.
But it's a 0.0. So if you're worried about like the 0.5 that's in some stuff, it is a complete 0.0.
And it's really very, very good.
It is probably one of our favorites for sure.
So.
And I think you've talked about before. You make your little orange.
They make the orange. I want to call them popsicles because that's
ice cubes, basically.
And it's ice cube. You
cubes.
take orange slices and then some orange juice, and you can make this really pretty. Super tasty. Put that in your glass, and then put your champagne, NA, of course.
Of course.
And it's awesome.
I was going to do Tanqueray Zero, but when I brought up the notes for last time, I did that last time.
You're so excited. You're like, I'm going to do it again.
No. So I did pour one to drink, but I don't like to do this too often because it's not fair, I think, to everybody else. But it is fair to Rob at Generation NA. This is only available in 2 places in the country. I don't even know the other place, but Generation NA in Lafayette, Indiana is where we picked this up. The Unlucky Charms Cereal Milk Pale Ale.
That's pretty tasty.
I forget what the brewery's called. I had to look it up. I'll put it in the notes. If you're watching the video, you're going to see a picture of it. So go to YouTube and watch the video.
Yeah, it's
Links
good.
down below. But it is really good. I actually bought 2, and I gifted one to a friend of ours when he was over recording our testimonial video for our church. So I said, here, you don't really drink either. Here you go. I will gift this to you. And he loved it.
He did.
So, yeah, if you happen to be in Lafayette or England, I guess, pick one up. I highly recommend it, as they say. As they say? As Ferris Bueller says.
Ferris? Oh, no, it's Bueller.
Come on now. Come on.
I know. We need to watch it again.
I know. All right, Coach Amy. As we ran through that, let's get to a more relaxing and very great interview with Allison Barber. Tell us about Allison.
Allison Barber, a former D1 competitive gymnast from St. Louis, Missouri, navigated life's pressures and joys, including marriage, parenting 3 daughters, and working for a family business, battling the internal conflicts with alcohol consumption, a twice ruptured cervical disc, and a difficult marriage. She found a turning point through the book This Naked Mind. And by June of 2020, she transformed herself from a heavy drinker to a non-drinker, embracing freedom. She's now a certified coach, and she guides others towards lasting freedom from alcohol, believing in change from the inside out. And you can find more information from Allison at www.allisonbarbercoach.com. And she's also on all the socials. So let's go to that interview. We are here today with Allison Barber, and we are so excited to bring her story to you guys today. And I just am going to ask the first question is, Allison, if you could just introduce yourself to our listeners and tell us where you're from, a little bit about your background, and then we'll start with that.
Okay, thanks for having me on. Yeah, like I said, my name is Allison Barber. I grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in St. Louis and live here currently. I have four sisters, so we all grew up in a very athletic background. They were swimmers, and I was a gymnast, and so I like to describe our family as we were very hardworking bunch of ladies. My mom was, she very much valued hard work. So our focus was mostly on our sports and our academics. And I also grew up in the church. So I had kind of this backdrop of being good and doing good. And that was kind of the mantra. And I also did gymnastics in college. So it was sort of this chase after perfection and things like having fun and building relationships were sort of kind of a cherry on the top. It was sort of the reward if you had time to squeeze those things in. And that kind of describes how I was raised. And so I have this bent about me about, just working hard and being a good person. And I met my then husband in high school, and we dated about a year and a half into college, and then broke up. We weren't at the same college, and we got back together later in our 20s. And what really drew me to him was the idea that I didn't have to always be good. I didn't always have to do good. Like I was okay just the way I was. And that mentality to me was sort of refreshing. It felt like I had a new sense of freedom that I didn't like somebody giving me permission to just kind of let my hair down and be myself. And that felt good. And that was a big attraction to me. We got married right before I had turned 30 and had three kids, three girls who are now 21, 19, and 16. And ended up working for my mom, who started a business 50 years ago. So that's part of my alcohol journey as well. I like to describe the fact that she and I I was her daughter, I was her employee. Um, she was my babysitter. She was my happy hour person, and she was also my neighbor. So we were very intertwined. We got along really well. And as going back to my 20s, alcohol was always one of those things that I would dabble in, but it wasn't a big part of my life early on. And into my 20s, and finally getting done with gymnastics in that stage in my life. I finally had the permission to, kind of do what I wanted. And so I noticed in looking back that there was sort of an uptick of drinking and this sort of association that it was something fun to do, that I could relax, that I could enjoy with friends. And then once my husband and I got married, I describe it as sort of the third wheel in our marriage. He was a very active drinker. At that point, I was actively drinking. And unknown to me, I didn't realize how woven that was going to become so tightly in our marriage, that it really was a big part of the deterioration of our relationship. And at the time, I thought, we were mostly using it to socialize. Um, but as stress and life goes on, and you have kids, and you have all these things, um, you 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 would use it as kind of this band-aid, as this like relief from the stress of the day. So it shifted from not just being kind of an occasional social outlet, but one of sort of this blanket, this reward, this comfort, to help from the daily stresses.
Mm-hmm. I hear you on all of that. Check off all
Yeah.
of it, can't
Yeah.
you?
Well, we are neighbors with my parents, but we live in the same town,
Yeah.
and we help them run their business, so we associate with that, and we were drinking buddies with our, so
Mhm.
a lot of
Similarities.
similarities there,
Yeah.
for sure.
And that Midwestern um, work ethic,
Yes.
we have to, we work hard and therefore we play hard. I
Yeah.
mean, that I think was interwoven.
Which is code for drink hard, but
Yeah,
we always
it
call it play
is.
hard. Yeah.
Well, and there was a sense of pride there. Like, I've worked hard and now I've earned this thing. And
Yes.
Right.
um it I think alcohol is very sneaky in that it doesn't necessarily, for most people, just come on as this sudden problem. We've got this sort of reinforcing belief when we are sort of celebrating with, for then, for my purposes, with my mom, it just sort of solidified that, yeah, I mean, we both agreed, was kind of, it helped kind of buffer some of the edges of the relationship when there was stress. But it also was there to celebrate when we would do well or we were having successes. Um, and that
Yeah.
was, yeah. So yeah, you relate in a lot of ways with the.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to ask, so when did you start to feel that this isn't this isn't working or this isn't right?
um I think there was always this sort of underlying knowing. I think
Mm.
probably because of my faith, if I woke up and I was like, I knew I had too much to drink. Um, so I think it was always sort of underneath the surface. It just, the voice was pretty quiet, was quiet enough that I felt like everything else sort of justified any of my questioning around it. Um,
Mm.
and it was acceptable. It was acceptable even within the, my fellow friends that were, share the same faith. So we had that too. But I think when I started seeing issues with my teenage daughters, and seeing how I wasn't fully present with them. They would say, well, I told you that last night, Mom. Or,
Oh.
yeah, the idea of, I didn't remember. Or if they were having issues, how did I advise them? What did I say? I know we had this conversation.
Oh,
Um, and I questioned, you know, what words was I using, and how much of it was actually helpful and how much of it was alcohol inflamed.
That's a good
mm.
call. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like, because you had the conversation at the time, it just felt like good advice, quote unquote, right? But, yeah, in the morning, it's like, oh, what did I give them good? What did I tell them? And then you probably had some guilt to go back. It's like, well, I can't really go up to him and say, what did I tell you last night? Because I was too drunk to remember, right? So you just kind of sweep that under the rug and hope it works out, right?
Yep, and just keep moving forward. And then as my relationship seemed to with my then husband, we would have more increased arguments. And it
Mm.
was like the differences that we had, alcohol just, it was like the gasoline on a fire. Um, like And so at the end of the night, if we were arguing and then I'd think, oh, the girls didn't hear us argue, or maybe they didn't hear, what we said. And it's like, well, I mean, I know now that they did, but at the time, I think I would try to minimize what I thought might have been going on. So those were probably my biggest indicators. We, my Unfortunately, my husband had an incident with my middle daughter, and while I won't focus so much on that, that was kind of for me a wake up call to know that my own drinking contributed to the fact that I wasn't fully present or aware to be able to kind of either prevent or to deal with the situation in a healthy way. Um, and my efforts and my understanding around alcohol was I just needed to try harder. I just needed to be willing to commit. It goes back to my upbringing. It's like, well, if you work hard enough at it, you'll be able to succeed. And why was it that I couldn't just cut back? Why, when I said I was only going to have one, did I end up having three or four or whatever the case may be? It was always this push and pull of what I wanted and what I was actually doing. And so it was very elusive to me. I didn't understand it. And I realize now I didn't have the knowledge that I
Mhm.
needed in order to make any meaningful changes with
Yeah.
my relationship with it.
And as we know this, as you're a coach as well, we know now why that is. We know the science behind it. We know what it is triggering inside of us, all the dopamine and then the dynorphin and just that constant battle within our own bodies. And so I know personally for me that disconnect from all of it, that disconnect. And even like you said, there was this small voice, but it was that voice of, I can just push that away right now.
Mm. Well,
And
yeah, I
yeah, go
think in
ahead.
our culture, we can busy ourselves. I mean, and even if we want the distraction of social media, I mean, you just put your head in your phone and you don't have to you don't have to deal with it.
Well,
So,
yeah. Was there a wake up call? Like, was there like something definitive that you finally was like, okay, I gotta really address this? Because I know you said, we're gonna try harder, we're gonna try harder. What finally was that moment where you're like, okay, it's time. I gotta really dig into this.
yeah, I'd say two things come to mind. One was in the summer of 2019, and I was struggling not only with my marriage, but also my relationship with my mom in the business. And I felt like I in my adult w world, I was playing all these supportive roles. I was a wife, I was an employee, I was a mom, and I would often point the finger at them as though they were the problem and they just didn't understand, from my perspective, where I was coming from. And it was when I finally um, shifted from having just a victim mindset to kind of owning my own just choices and taking 100% responsibility for the choices I made. I felt like if I didn't play that victim role, that would mean that they didn't need to make any changes. But what I learned is that it was just that my energy was going outward into ways that in places I had no control. So when I finally decided that I needed to take responsibility for myself, what that looked like was addressing my drinking, because I knew in my marriage, if there was anything, if I ended up divorced, I knew that I needed to be able to turn over every stone that I knew to turn over, and drinking was one of them. So that kind of kick-started this more beginning stages of trying to see things in a different way than the way that I had been approaching it. I ended up not working for my mom for a while. And I sort of created some separation between my husband and I within our home. Um, and that was in the summer of 2019. And then what happened, my middle daughter developed anorexia. So it bought me time to deal with more family and personal things. So, and by the end of 2019, I ruptured a cervical disc. So everything was sort of coming to a head. And I ended up having surgery in March of 2020, right before the pandemic really hit and they shut down most surgeries. Um, that was sort of probably my personal breaking point, and really feeling physically debilitated, but also debilitated with alcohol, um, I was taking pain medication because of the level of pain that I was in. And I just felt like my world was going so dark and was shrinking so small. Coming out of that, I started learning about different authors and different ways of thinking about alcohol and how it actually works in your body and your brain. And it was with that new information that I actually was able to think some new thoughts, challenge what I actually believed it was doing for me. And before we came on, I was just thinking about and it kind of ended up being these 4 M's. And um, one of them was mindset. The mindset I had changed from being like I knew it all to being more curious and open. Um, and I was motivated. I finally wanted to change more than I didn't want to change. Um, I don't know. I'm sure you can relate to, it's like, I want this. I don't want this. I want to
Mm-hmm.
drink. I don't want to drink.
Right.
And I finally felt like the seesaw had finally shifted to a place where I wanted it, and that stuck. So the motivation was there. And like I said, the message, the new information that I was learning, it was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea alcohol was actually addictive. Like that seems so basic. Um, but it felt like new information to me. And so at that point, I could stop judging myself so quickly when I woke up and just felt this level of guilt and shame, like, here it is. I did it again. Like, why can't I get it together? Um, and learning how it actually affects your body. Um, of course, your body wants it again and again because that's what it knows.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then and then I needed minutes. I needed time that COVID provided. And my kids were older. Um, and it provided me the time to really put all those ingredients together. And by June 21st of 2020, after not being able to string hardly days together, I think my longest stretch other than pregnancy was 9 days. And, I had a friend encourage me. It's like, why don't you just keep going and see what happens, And so I can't actually believe that I can say I've been 3.5 years without any alcohol because I couldn't string 3 days together.
Yeah, and just to look at the smile on your face, like right now, it just like made me like I could feel that whole sense of energy and relief.
Yeah.
And um
I think that's something in the sober community. Like we can identify with the pain and the sorrow, but we also can identify with the joy and relief
yeah,
of getting rid of it.
and freedom. Like the freedom of, as you just said, the mindset, the motivation, message, and then the minutes. And I love the fact I hear this over and over with my clients, with people we interview. It's like, I didn't know that it
Mm.
was this addictive. And we hear the messages, we hear like things like, oh, well, it causes liver cancer and, oh, you'll have liver failure and different things like that. But it's made so it's not like this reality. And when you're thinking about something like that, that's like this physical, like a real physical problem. Like we don't talk about the anxiety and the depression and the times where we just have so much self-doubt in ourselves, like just questioning everything that we do and all the stories, like you said, like the victim, like the victim, I have to choose this for me. And I think that, that for me, like just seeing that light up, I'm like, oh yeah, it's true.
Mm.
This is where
Yeah.
we're at. We all have this really similar story because the message is just, it's just buried. The real truth of alcohol is buried from us. It's just this vagueness. Oh, it's not, don't drink too much. It's
Yeah.
bad for you if you drink way too much.
Yeah.
What's too much?
I
So
don't know.
I mean,
elusive.
yeah,
So
Well, right.
it
elusive.
is. That's, that could be a fifth M, like
Right.
what's too much? I mean,
Yeah.
it's just,
Yeah. Well, and s- going back to what you were saying about the freedom, initially I thought, now I've got freedom to drink because I've sort of arrived at this age and this place in time where I don't I get to do this. And it's true, we do get to choose. Um, but now after walking through it, I can at least now say I have freedom from it. Like
mm,
I don't have to. And for those who maybe even don't struggle with it, but have it as some part of their life, um, you know, you don't realize until you remove it, sometimes the things that you've sacrificed unknowingly, quality of sleep, um, like you talked about the anxiety, the depression. And I always attributed that to my life circumstances. I thought the things that were going on in my life were the causes for all of that.
mm-hmm,
I had no idea that alcohol itself was contributing, um, to whatever degree. I mean, it's hard to say because there are a lot of variables, but I, being on the other side as an adult, being a non-drinker, I can see how much it actually played a huge role, not just, a little role in my life. And just in the um, kind of consistency, in my mindset, in my ability to take bumps in the road, big bumps and small bumps, and it isn't so erratic.
mm,
Um,
yeah.
and I never attributed that to drinking. I thought that was helping me manage it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think that's the trap of alcohol. We think it's helping us manage everything. So let's go. Now you've gotten your stringing days together, more than 9 days.
Mhm.
You see the hope, the future in front of you. And you're like, I'm not going to go back. I mean, maybe you didn't think that quite yet, but where did you start to see then, like, okay, what am I going to, what am I going to do about my marriage?
Mhm.
Because that was something that was, um, I know you mentioned earlier, you had this person that you drank with, he gave you like this freedom that I can now drink
Mhm.
and live my life this way. He gave me this feeling of it's okay to let my hair down and this is the way we're going to live. Where did that all play together now?
Yeah, in my mind's eye, I wish that, I could be sitting here with my husband and you two and having this conversation, saying that we both went through this journey and we came out the other side. Um, I unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, I my life actually, circumstances seemed to get worse before they got better. So while I was having a lot of personal internal benefits from not poisoning myself anymore, my outside circumstances were still very much chaotic and not going in the way that I had hoped. Um, so my marriage, but what it gave me is it gave me a lot more clarity around um, what was actually going on in my marriage. And I realized it was actually a very destructive marriage. And what I was doing by drinking with him was just giving validation and permission to kind of keep it going. So when I stopped, I got more clarity around um, health of relationships, consistency, um, and I don't have any doubt that my husband loved me, but he was not in a point anywhere um, along this journey that he wanted to do something similar, and I needed to let that go. And I'm not saying that, if anybody is in the same situation that it's going to mean divorce, but for me, in our situation, it was healthier for me to end the marriage. And it wasn't it that was a big part of it. But there was a lot of other contributing factors. Um, but as we know, I mean, when you drink, you often do things that you wouldn't normally do if you weren't under the influence.
Mm-hmm.
So I went through divorce. I went through a second neck surgery. I went through a um, a breakage in my relationship with my mom again. I went through a just a hard time. I'm in a hard time place with my middle daughter right now, who doesn't want to talk with me, not due to the divorce as much as where she was going her senior year in high school. And, as a parent, you're trying to navigate, boundaries and, um, but our divorce and separation allowed her to leave my home and make other choices. So, I'm hopeful and prayerful that this new kind of consistent living allows me to be present, and I'll be a healthier version of myself now. I can't go back in the past and change anything that maybe I would have
Mm-hmm.
done differently. But I can be the best version of myself so that when she comes back, I'm in a healthy place to receive her and to work through our challenges. So um, it hasn't been easy for sure, but alcohol would not have it would have made it so much worse.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I'm grateful that I had freedom from alcohol. It gave me the confidence I needed to make hard decisions. It was easier to kick the can down the road if I was just
Mm-hmm.
drinking. It's like I'll deal with it
Yeah.
tomorrow, or I'll just
Yeah.
complain about it to a friend, and that'll buy me another day. And but I feel way more confident than I than I did before. My confidence had really eroded over the years because I couldn't
Yeah.
You
count on myself not to drink, and I didn't realize the impact that had on me.
you made a great comment. I love the way you phrased it, and I won't probably say it correctly, but you said that you were feeling better on the inside and emotionally, but your outside world hadn't changed. I think
Mm,
that's important because some people think, well, if I quit, all these things are going to get better. But well, then I might as well drink. Well, it's not getting better if you were drinking. You're just living with your eyes wide shut,
mm,
right? So I think that's a great point to make
Yeah.
of like your circumstances were still what they were,
Yeah.
whether you're numbing yourself or not, right? Like stopping drinking didn't necessarily, improve or ruin your marriage. It just made you, you know, deal with instead of burying everything, right? So you had to come to terms with certain things. This can be a challenge on its own, right? But it didn't make it worse. It's just like, oh, well, now I can't numb away.
Yeah, you have to face it.
Yeah.
You have to
Yeah.
actually, and you have the ability to face it,
Health
you
in
know,
a healthy way.
in a healthy way. I mean, that I think is key because I know when I decided to quit drinking and I talked to you about it, I mean, the conversation I had in my head was, well, I've already had one marriage that ended and it ended because of my ex's drinking. And now I'm like, well, I mean, I had this thought. I'm like, if it happens, you've gone through it. You you got through a divorce years ago, you'll be able to do it again. And I never, said that to you until after, years really after we
Right.
had kind of gone through it. But that was my thought. And it was like, I have to get the inside. I just have to work on me right now.
Mm.
And yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, the healthier we are, the better we're going to show up in our relationships.
Yep.
And I think the mistake I kept making was looking at the other party going, if only they, if only
Yeah.
he, if only she, and then things would be much better, which isn't necessarily untrue, but my energy focused outward like that, I had no control over that.
Yeah.
And I felt like I felt like I was already putting 100% into it. So why did I have to do more of the work? And that was sort of my justification to say, well, forget it then. I'm just going to drink and go along with what they're doing because
Right.
nobody else seems to care as much.
Oh,
And
yes.
and
Amen.
it's like, well, you're just self-sabotaging at that point.
Yep. Yep.
And I'm not contributing to what I can to the health of myself and my relationships.
Yeah.
Right.
So I want to ask, did your mom drink or does she still drink?
Yeah, very much.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And I was going to say, how how has your not drinking, because now you work for her again,
Mhm.
how what's going on in that relationship and how do you see, the progress that you've made in, taking care of yourself? Like how is that affecting that relationship?
Um, it's a good question. I dare not speak for her.
Sure.
If I, but if I had to guess, I mean, there's definitely a grieving of a loss of like, we used to do this together.
Mm,
Um, and so I will say in all of this sort of evolution, there are things that either go away or get minimized and other things that open up. Um, what I think it has opened up is my ability to respond versus react to her. So I would say that contributes to a positive um, contribution to our relationship. Um, I think my mom being 86 and as amazing as she is and as cognitively with it, she still is. Um, I think she grew up in a time where she wasn't given the skills or shown the skills on how to communicate, how to have, effective disagreements, um, like how to share toys. Like so I've worked for her in a I've worked for her in a very supportive role, and she likes being the owner and she likes being in charge. And again, I when I finally shifted my mentality to this isn't fair, she should be retired by now. Like we should have, all these things that I in my mind think should happen. Um, I have to deal with, and I get to deal with what's going on right now and realizing that time on this earth is short. And so for me to show up clear-minded, um, I can try to focus on all the positives and the benefits. Or when all the negativity comes, I can try to take a step back and see it for what it is and try to keep it in perspective. Because I think
Mm,
drinking also, like, you get so hyper focused on the thing you're struggling with, and it becomes the forest. Like, you can't get outside your circumstances because you're so wrapped up in whatever the issue is. And
yeah.
now I have more ability to do that. So then I don't have to engage in this like kind of destructive argument. And that's not to say that this has gone perfectly. It hasn't. But again, just getting back to like taking 100% responsibility and having agency in your whole life. It's like,
Hmm.
okay, everybody gets to make their choices and I get to let them make their choices. I don't have to worry about, trying to control the outcome, but just sort of letting that be out there and focusing more on like, but am I showing up in the way that I think is honorable?
Yeah. I love how I say, how we respond versus reacting. And probably for so long, I was just reacting. It was just this, reacting to everything. And just really what you even said, that victim mentality. Well, they did this. Well, this, I blah, 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 blah. And I would go into all this like spinning in those conversations. But the freedom that and the clarity that you receive when you do this work is that you get to really you get to zoom back and see the
Mm.
whole picture and go, okay, this is not worth it. Like this, whatever particular thing. So um I really like that how you talk because that's one of the things I say to Matt all the time is it's like, okay, are we going to react to it or are we going to respond?
Mm.
And I think that's key to all of this. I mean, and I think as people who have quit drinking, I feel like when we do this work, we have such an advantage over so many people who haven't even taken a look at this at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah. And I hope our culture is changing. I mean, I'm glad that you guys have this podcast because it allows for conversation um, to happen where you get to look at how alcohol, to whatever degree it might be in your world, is potentially impacting and is impacting your relationships. And
Hmm.
is it really serving you?
Yeah.
Um, and without judgment, just kind of, yeah, take a step back and consider maybe what could be that
Yeah.
you don't necessarily know.
How is your relationship with your ex? Or how are you
Um,
handling your relationship? How
hmm,
are you responding to your relationship?
um, that is ongoing work for me. And because I didn't have language around narcissism,
Mm,
gaslighting, um, I learned at the end, he had made some choices that pretty much sealed the deal on
mm,
our relationship. My I am able to work on having conversation with him that's elevated above all of that yucky stuff. Um, because I know that the deterioration of our marriage wasn't just him. Um, so to the degree I can take ownership of that um, and that again doesn't minimize what choices he made and he's
mm-hmm.
making, um, I can still want and hope the best for him. But it's healthiest for me not to engage too much in conversation with him because of this like new knowledge that I have.
Mm,
And I don't think maybe things were always that way. It's hard. Sometimes it's hard to look back at decades
yeah.
of being with somebody to know. I mean, you integrate your life and you just pull it apart, and it's like mixing taffy together and then trying to pull it apart and see what was
Hmm.
what, and, you know, all of that. But that's a tricky one. That is
Yeah.
ongoing work for
Yeah.
me. I'll just say
Yeah.
But I
that.
think
No.
important to point out, and a lot of our listeners ask this question, it doesn't sound from an outsider's perspective that like surely you quitting alcohol was the reason the marriage ended. Like it provided you some clarity to address things, but a lot of people are like, well, if I quit and they don't, will we get divorced? And
Hmm.
it if it ends that way, it may just because you had the clarity and the courage then to address other issues that were already
Yeah.
systemic going on, right?
Yeah.
So it opened your eyes a little bit. It didn't necessarily change what was happening in the marriage as much. Is that fair to say?
I think that's totally fair to say. And I'm glad you touched on that, because I would hate for any listener to think, I don't think I should quit drinking because this is going to be
Hmm.
my inevitable fate. I know plenty of people who have navigated um, their relationship with their spouse when they quit, but their husband or, you know, wife didn't. But like you said, it kind of took the veil off my eyes to kind of see the issues that we were just masking with
Yeah.
alcohol. And yeah, there were plenty of other things, but not unlike alcohol, it was this cycle of rinse repeat. Like, you wake up, you try to deal with the issues, you put alcohol on it, and then it just kind of you have these cyclical
Right.
arguments, or and
Hmm.
but we, at the end of the day, we really we're never in control of what other people do anyway. So
So true.
I think that that's important to keep in mind, because y- your spouse or anybody else is going to do what they're going to do. Um, and I think we need to make sure that we're addressing our own issues.
Hmm.
By not
100%.
addressing our own issues doesn't ultimately help the relationship.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
but you're given more tools if you kind of stop handicapping yourself, you know,
Yeah. It's
with
so good. And the I know Matt's wanting to, move this along, but
Hey, don't blame me for being the clock watcher.
I want to ask you though, how has your relationship with God? How is that now?
oh my goodness. It's amazing. I was always doing the things, right? Going to church. I was in a Bible study. I've been in the same Bible study for 20 plus years. Um, the relationship I have with God now feels like there's no barrier. Um, and I know that God never left me. I never
Mhm.
understood why. Like, I would pray, please, like, just take this from me. I don't want to have to struggle with this. I know that it keeps me from you. And I couldn't understand why I felt like he wasn't answering that prayer. Um, but in his time, he did answer my prayer, and he gave me the tools to do that. And so I feel this renewed sense of joy and peace, knowing that the work he's done for me has already been done. For me, that looks like Christ on the cross. There's nothing I can do. And I have to kind of fight my old mentality of like, well, if I just do enough
Yeah.
good, or if I'm a good enough person, I'm more acceptable before God. Um, just couldn't be further from the truth. But we have this mentality in our culture too. Um, and now it just feels like freedom. Um, and I'm far from perfect, but I feel like this was a big uh, barrier, just from
Mhm.
feeling connected.
Yeah.
Because I would wake up and I was just like, oh, I did it again. And then it was either the like confession or I was mad because he hadn't, you know, taken the
Mhm.
struggle from me. And you know, he's patient with us.
Yeah.
And I feel like and now I just have such gratitude. Um, and it's not about so much doing things right in order to be seen better in his eyes. It's more of a response of his love for me and his patience with me. And it um, keeps me very humbled.
I love it.
Yeah.
I really do. That I think is the perfect place to have Matt ask his favorite question.
It's always the last question, Amy. So since you don't drink now, what is when you're out and about or sitting around home, what is your go-to favorite non-alcoholic beverage to enjoy?
Oh, well, I've played with a lot of different things. I mostly go to seltzers just because I do like them and they're probably like the least expensive option to have on a regular basis. But I like the Lagunitas hop water,
Hmm.
particularly in the bottle. That feels like a treat. Um, and I like club soda. And there's some mixers, some spirits, non-alcoholic spirits that feel like a treat to me. So I would say, yeah, I'm not sure if I have one specific one, but those are some that I really and I love to, you know, kind of explore with that. It feels like a new reward.
It's
Yeah,
fun
yeah.
too. I mean,
We actually had to repurchase a bar kit because we purged all of our bar stuff. So we don't need this. We don't drink anymore. But we
Yeah.
mix and do more now that we're sober than we did when we drank. So we've had to like repurchase our martini glasses that we purge, repurchase the bar kits. So we're
yep.
mixing these, mocktails, and so we're having way more fun than we ever did actually drinking. Because when you're drinking, you just pour drink to drink, and you don't you forget about the art and the fun part about it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so good. It's so good that
Yeah.
this whole space is just
Yeah.
continuing to expand. It's
Yeah.
great.
I love this movement. And how can everyone get a hold of you?
Well, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and I've got a website. So the website is theinsideoutfreedom.com. It's also AllisonBarberCoach.com, with two L's. And Instagram is, I think it's just the Inside Out Freedom or Inside Out Freedom, and same with Facebook. So the Inside
Great.
Out Freedom.
Well,
So
we'll make sure that we put that into the show notes. And we just so appreciate this time with you today.
thank you.
And
It's been great talking.
it's great to have somebody who, since you're down in I think the St. Louis area,
Yeah.
I'm hoping that maybe we can do a meetup sometime, and just be able to hang out with one of our fellow alcohol-free coaches.
We'll
And
bring the drinks.
yeah,
Yeah. I will definitely take you up on that. The meeting people virtually is amazing in this space, but there is something special about meeting in person that
there
just,
is.
yeah.
When you know you've been connected with somebody who's gone on this similar journey, and you're just like, you just get it.
Yeah, you do. You
You
just
just
get
get
it.
it. Yeah.
So cool.
So,
It's awesome.
okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, and we'll see you soon.
Okay, sounds good.
All
Thank
righty.
you.
Thanks.
Well, thank you, Allison, for a fantastic interview. I love her perspective.
I do.
I love, I, the still my favorite comment from her is the one about, you know, just because I quit drinking, I feel better about myself doesn't change your circumstances necessarily. That your world,
Yes.
it's not a miracle cure, but you're able to approach it with a healthier view and an outlook,
Yep.
and and deal with things that happen in your life versus just drink another drink and
Absolutely.
hope it goes away on its own. So that never works out.
And I also loved her 4 M's, the mindset, motivated, message, and minutes. So, thank you so much to Allison. And remember that we all have that choice. We have a choice that we're either going to react to a situation or we're going to respond to a situation. Yep. So thank you so much, Allison.
Yes, thank you. And thank you to those of you listening to the Alcohol-Free Marriage More podcast. We'll be back again next week with another fantastic interview, or just Amy and I babbling at each other. You never know. That's what the roll of the dice of this podcast is. So wishing you peace and love from the cornfields. I'm Matt, along with Coach Amy, and we are
out.